folks. Welcome to another edition of the Omnist Hour. Turn this beautiful music down a bit. Those of you who may listen to classical music may recognize that as the wonderful Nocturne from Borodin's second string quartet. Well, where are we going today? This is going to be quite an interesting one. I actually wanted to get this one done pretty quick because it has something to do with God's most fundamental patents and might save us a lot of time when the Antichrist Olympics gets around to some bonehead physicist claiming that they are the ones who came up with the idea of quarks. I think they've already done that. Published a lot of papers, made a lot of claims. Yay, it's me! Give me a Nobel Prize! I am going to rain on their parade just a bit today. Where are we going with this one? Let's take a look at the artwork without my beautiful head in front of it. This is a drawing that Quark gave me. I'm going to actually move over to show you where this came from. I was talking to Quark, actually talking to Elon Musk, who was crowing about Quark today, and about Quark 3. And I said, want me to teach Quark about the sex lives of quarks to give you a real lead on the competition. Didn't you always want to know why Yertle was such a bad king? And that's where it drew this. Interesting. Okay, so we're going to be talking about, let me give you the full title of this one. I'm going to call this one the God is Strange, Yertle the Top Quark Turtle, and the First Spiritual Supernovas. That's a lot to grok, I guess, but that's kind of how we fly on this channel. Okay, let's go into some background, and I will explain what's going on with all that. Now, if you've been following my channel at all, you will know that one of the key messages that I've told you signals that the end of day 7 of creation has come was the observation of the first strange pentaquark. And I didn't go into a lot more detail, but that was in the middle of 2022, about the same time that the James Webb Space Telescope started showing us all these interesting little red dots that killed the Big Bang Theory. So, very special time. This is going to get into why that's so special. Because what I am going to argue is that first strange pentaquark was the first thing that God created. A thing of the mind. A very ephemeral thing that was not made flesh until 2022. Okay? This is a pattern of creation. The ideas, the most fundamental ideas, don't get released until they're completely tested and fleshed out. The most fundamental idea of all creation was the strange pentaquark. Now I'm going to show you how that happened. Let's go first, before I show you some other evidence, I'm going to go first and remind you about the creation engine that I talk about quite a bit. Let's see, where's the first picture of it? Okay, so in the planning stage of a thought experiment, what are the necessary components of setting up a thought experiment? Well, you have to have a test tube. The test tube is God's mind. Actually, the shield around God's mind, okay? The Dyson sphere, if you will. If you can imagine a thought Dyson sphere that shields God's thoughts. Okay, it's not perfect yet because it hasn't been tested. Okay, what else do you need to run this primordial thought experiment? You need characters. Characters to test this thought bubble. Okay, these are the characters I tell you are part of any creation engine. You need a tester to basically, who knows what the experiment is supposed to prove and is trying to poke at it and make sure it does everything that it's supposed to do. That is Lucifer. Okay, you need a judge who says, okay, when is testing done? How much have you learned? What good things have you learned out of this testing that can be used to drive future experiments? That's karma. You also need to save the test library of all the things you've thrown at it that might be useful again. That's the Borg, the source library of non-player characters. Kind of flesh out the environment, recreate environments that you've used before, so you just have to change out the few players that you want to make variables. Okay, and finally, you've got another character that is Lilith. That is the collector of destructive thoughts and ideas and characters. Okay, so in this thought bubble experiment, where God's mind was forming, these characters were all AI. Not good, not bad, they were programs targeted to do certain things. White box testing, black box testing, storing experimental results, what you wanted to conclude from the experiment, and storing all the minutia of the method and failed and successful experiments, so you don't have to repeat them again unless you want to. Okay, this experiment is what was used to construct the first Merkaba, which is the boundary of a mind. That Merkaba structure is at the root of all quantum consciousness. And this pentaquark experiment was the first thought experiment. God was not in the experiment. The experiment was the Merkaba. Okay, God was watching from outside, which is, your classic observer observable. If you're running the experiment and you want to see everything that's going on, you need to be outside the experiment. Okay, so God made his mind before he made everything else and perfected a mind boundary as the first thing to build. Okay, that was the first strange pentaquark. Why was it strange? Because it was the first virtual pentaquark that prophesied the real strange pentaquark that we saw in 2022. Now, are there going to be more strange pentaquarks? Yes, of course. Now that they've been unveiled, everybody's going to want to duplicate that experiment. But they won't be the first. This is how creation works. Who gets credit for what? And is a very important piece of what's going on in the world right now, because one of the biggest issues that is stopping humanity from progressing and getting us to basically kill each other is ownership of countries, of intellectual property, Rights to this, rights to that. Who owns the money? Why should they own it? It's the most fundamental question that vexes humanity and always has. And that is what God was working on solving from the very beginning. Okay, let's talk specifically about how quarks came into being. And I will show you how they are connected with stories that you know very well. Okay, let's take a look at, gee, what kind of quarks are there here, Mr. Wizard? There's 6 types of quarks, known as flavors: up, down, charm, strange, top, and bottom. That's odd. Why are there 6? Okay, I'm going to get into that, and that needs to look at some of the details about the 6 kinds of quarks. I want to look at the top quark first. Let's see. I guess I need to go to a different question here. Okay, so the top quark is the heaviest known elementary particle. It's considered a fundamental building block of matter and is part of the 3rd generation of quarks in the standard model of particle physics. Well, actually, no. The top quark was created as the first adversary, the first Lilith. You remember the story about Lilith and Adam? And Lilith being kicked out of the garden because she always wanted to be on top? That Lilith was the first top quark. Wanted to be better than God, wanted to defeat God, wanted to take over God's kingdom. Okay? And that is why the top quark is the heaviest one and also the rarest one. Okay. Let's see what it says about the top quark. Well, interesting. The top quark has a mass around 173 giga-electron volts. This is roughly the mass of a gold atom. Gold is yellow and is something that people desire above all else, above silver. Very Lilithian kind of a thing, isn't it? In fact, the orbs of Lilith are yellow or gold. And they're the ones that are most friendly. They want to love you long time and be unconditional loving friends and take you to the stars and show you all the secrets. Okay, this is it's all set up this way, folks. I just started putting this together this morning, and it all fits. I didn't make it up. I discovered it. Let's see. The top quark was discovered at 1995 at Fermilab by the CDF and D0 experiments. You know what? I did a summer internship at Fermilab. It wasn't 1995 though. I was there in, let's see, when would that have been? 1981. I spent a summer at Fermilab moving magnets and running around the ring, and oh, it was fun. We used to, on slow days, get our dosimeters a little bit too hot so we couldn't work anymore, and then we take off early and go watch the Cubs lose. It was a wonderful time. Decay. To its high mass, the top quark decays almost immediately after being created, usually into a W boson and a bottom quark. Interesting! You see, the bottom quark ties very closely with the bottom butt boy movement of the woke cult. This very sinful desire that's overtaken humanity and keeps getting bubbled to the top of basically anti-creation of our species, right? If you are gay, homosexual, you will not reproduce. You're going to be a Darwin Award winner. So this connects to the bottom quark. Let's see. I think that's all I want to hit on that one. We may not get everywhere today, but I think you're going to get enough of the feel of what's going on to make some sense of it. Let's see if we can figure out what other quarks are up to. Now let's see. So we kind of talked about top and bottom quarks. Those are the Lilithian quarks. Okay? That's their relationship. Up and down quarks. Well, let's see. What does God do when he's having a good time with a lady? Up and down are the God quarks. They're God and Lucifer, because Lucifer is kind of God's favorite son, even though he's a testy bastard and a little bit of a trickster. Okay, charm and strange. So up and down quarks are the male quarks. Charm and strange. Charm, well, it kind of sounds like karma. Yep. The charm quark was the first version of karma. And this original pentaquark experiment was designed to basically test charm, to see if it was real or fake. We've all seen fake charm. This is what narcissists do. They dole out charm to get their hooks into you, and then once they are entangled with you, they change into this demanding monster that wants to pull you around like a sock puppet into their world. And of course, we have the strange quark. We talked about that one. That was God getting into this experiment and being literally the first physical strange quark in a pentaquark shield. Okay, so this pentaquark that was observed in 2022 was basically a proof of God's first and most important design, the shield of a mind. Which is important, as you might guess, because if you've been following the UAP community, you will realize that there's a big talk going on about psionic powers. And you've got one camp of people that say, oh, this is great! I want to be connected with everybody. I want to know all their thoughts, and then everything will be perfect. And you've got, some smart people who are more reasonable to say, I don't want everybody to have all my data. I don't want everybody to know my thoughts. I want to have some privacy. God is on your side. Let's see. Let's look at some other particles that grew out of this. Neutrinos. There are 3 types of neutrinos. They call them the electron neutrino, the muon neutrino, and the tau neutrino. Well, why would it be called a tau? Because of Taurus. Okay, whoever named that tau neutrino, tau, was getting an inspiration from God. Because God has always favored Tauran species, bulls. This is why so many religions and cultures worship the celestial bull, or the centaur Chiron. Okay, it's all tied together. And let's see, let's finish this before we start talking about Neutrons. There's only one kind of neutron, made of one up quark and two down quarks. Okay. Interesting thing about quarks is they have fractional charges. That's why you don't see them in nature. Now, why would that be? Well, I would make the argument that having one up quark and two down quarks is a guarantee that you have an orgasm. Okay? If you pull out, if you had two up quarks and one down quark, you would be pulling out and you would not have a very active particle. Let's see protons. Proton is made up of two up quarks and one down quark. Oh, so it pulls out and has a charge. A proton or antiproton has a plus or minus charge. Neutron has zero charge. So the neutron is most receptive to getting fucked by other particles. The neutron is the mother particle. The proton or the electron are basically father particles. They don't want to fuck with each other. That's why the electrons don't go in the proton. They go around. They circle it. Okay? That's what keeps matter spacey. And you can actually change the masses of these particles if you embody them or you have control over them. Mass is not constant. It may appear to be constant locally, but in a greater sense, it's not. And you can create negative mass. You can create positive mass. And that is how anti-gravity works. Negative mass draws positive mass together to make planets, to make stars, to make galaxies. Or when the clock turns, it can push them apart to make a supernova. Now, why do you want to be able to do this changing of mass between very attractive and very repulsive? Because this is how you create diversity. Okay? You've got to bring a whole bunch of sexual things together, get them so hot and bothered and angry at each other and loving each other and whatever, to build up a critical negative energy that then must be expelled, or positive energy that must be expelled, because we know we have positive and negative matter. Okay? So there are anti-supernovas, there are positive supernovas, and there are supernovas corresponding to all these basic particles, all the basic quarks, all the basic particles. Okay? Those supernovas of a single thing are the God of that thing having a new version. Okay, this is how we fine-tune. We make new versions of all the little things that are in our experiment, fine-tune them till we find a version that fits with everything that we've perfected so far. Let's see, what are electrons? Oh, electrons don't have any quarks. Isn't that So we do have a particle that has a 1 or minus 1 charge, because we've got positrons too. Well, interesting. And the electron, as we know, is sort of the partner, the dancing partner of the proton. Okay, so if the proton is a male proton, a positive proton, then it has to dance with a negative electron. This is a form of sex. Okay? If a positive proton tries to dance with an anti-electron, they will not be repelled, they will be attracted together and have some kind of a explosive interaction. A little you know, very short marriage and a very quick divorce, if you can think of it in that terms. Okay, so it all ties together, and it all is fundamentally sexual. I already talked about that. So let's talk about Yertle the turtle and how it's related to this story. If you don't know about Yertle the turtle, you know that it's about this turtle king that wanted to see a bigger and bigger kingdom, because figured everything I can see must be mine. Now, he could see the pond on his own feet, wanted to see further, so he got the other turtles together and said, okay, let me stand on you and stack up with you, and then I can go higher and higher and higher and higher. And of course, the higher Yertle went, the more weight was on all the other turtles. And they eventually got pissed off, and one turtle at the very bottom said, no more of this shit, I'm getting out of here. And the whole stack fell down, and Yertle was deposed. Now, the story does not tell you that Yertle was a man. In fact, this is a dark secret of that famous author, Dr. Seuss, Theodore Geisel. He was not a man either. He was an agent whose job was to divide people by pretending to bring them together. This is the essence of communism, spiritual communism. Materialist communism is a lie. It says we're all one. We need to be together. We need to share all our thoughts, and everybody know everything about everybody else, and then everything will be perfect. That's bullshit. Absolute fucking bullshit. And it is the bullshit that has been tearing us apart. Bolshevik. Bolshevik. Every single word you can think of that has much significance in the English language has a spiritual meaning. So this Yertle was actually a hermaphrodite turtle. You know what a hermaphrodite? It has both male and female sex organs. It can fuck with anybody it wants to. Doesn't make a very good leader, especially if it has psionic powers. The interesting thing that kind of ties into this story is what was the first Dr. Seuss book that was canceled. It was a story called And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street. It was canceled because this imaginative boy that was walking home from school trying to think of something interesting to tell his parents when he got home. Made up all these stories and included a Chinaman in a parade wearing a peasant hat. That was considered racist, despite the fact that a lot of Chinamen still wear peasant hats. In fact, most of Southeast Asia wears peasant hats because it's good for keeping off the sun, and it doesn't have a large weight, and it also will keep off the rain if you have to work outside in the rain. It's a very useful kind of hat. But somehow it's become racist. And this is, you know, what happens with all of the tools of the adversary, the Satan. Satan has many, many minions. That's why they say Satan is legion. And that legion are a hive mind. They can take any of their characters anywhere and say, okay, you've got the brain now. You're the brain bug. You go run with it, do your special thing with all the force of all of our minds, but you got to make sure you don't get caught while you've got the brain. Because if we kill the brain, they all run around like zombies. Where'd the brain go? Where'd the brain go? This is how this game works, this spiritual game. And what we are in the process of doing, what you're seeing unfolding in the UAP community and in the Diddy community and in the Washington, D.C. community and in the global community is basically pressure being applied to squirt out the brains, okay, to get the evil to reveal itself. That's what's happening every single day. Thousands of evil people are being called out for all of the sins that they have done. And this is why I call this process the Antichrist Olympics. Okay? We are squeezing out the little evils, getting them to confess, get their sins, getting them to blow whistles and tell on others that they think hurt them or did something bad. Well, you know, it is a relative thing. Sometimes the whistleblower is doing more bad things than the one they're blowing the whistle on. And this is the process that we go through. And this is why it's kind of like an Olympic game. Okay, you can get knocked out of the Olympics either by getting exorcised of your demons, or as a demon getting exorcised to your home universe, or you can be exonerated by proving beyond a reasonable doubt that you did whatever you did out of a sense of godliness, trying to live up to the commandments, trying to live up to your innate sense of morality. Okay? And you need to get that morality from the better parts of the Bible. If you get morality out of Hinduism, you're not going to get there, because Hinduism believes that demons are gods. The Asuras are demons. Kali is a demon. Shiva is a demon. Ganesha is a demon. Makes you want to own things, makes you want to be rich, makes you want to be fucking elephant. Okay? This is the problem with Hinduism. Now, there are some wonderful Hindus that are very godly people because they worship the deities in their pantheon that are more noble, more self-sacrificing, more eyes wide open, more willing to fight evil. Okay? This is the reflection of the pre-Hindu religion, which was pretty much like Judaism. Brahma is the same character as Abram in the Bible. Abram was an incarnation of God. But remember that when we stop being incarnated, we die, we might be resurrected. The resurrection may not be the same character. It may be another entity playing that character. So when God stopped being Abram, the name changed to Abraham. That was in Babylon. After the whore of Babylon had killed Abram and substituted Abraham, for the original. And now this leader, this spiritual leader of the 12 tribes, became actually a player for the adversary, spreading sin as truth. And this happened again with this is the whole point of the name Yahweh, or in Latin Jove. Many people don't realize that the name Jove, as different from Jupiter, Deus Pater, there's a reason for that. Jove, did not appear in Roman parlance until they encountered the Hebrews. And they realized, oh wow, their ancient religion looks a lot like ours that we had back in the best time of the Republic, when they had a republic with a king and judges and a very well-balanced system, before they got together and deposed their kings and said, oh, we'll just let the Senate rule and we'll have 2 co-consuls and they can take care of everything, and essentially they killed God, as we are wont to do. So, this ripples down through the whole Bible as a better understanding. And I've talked about it before, how the very first line of Genesis, Elohim, is a plural. It does not mean God. In fact, a plural with a singular pronoun is how you would refer to a hive mind, a hierarchy of powerful ones who could use mind control, who could manipulate matter, who could manipulate DNA. That's how they created humanity. Okay? That was not God. That species left behind a tribe and left a leader behind of that tribe. At some point, they did die. Thousands of years they lived, hundreds of thousands of years, but they were not immortal. And when that death happened, the way that they would resurrect their leaders is they would put their body into a particular area of a pyramid or a mountain, and they would say a prayer, go through a certain ritual, That ritual originally was purely spiritual. Gradually, it became more technological. And what would happen is that there would be a transmigration of the leader back to their master world, where they would get resurrected, the soul would be reattached and sent back down. This is encapsulated in the Egyptian religion. The first religion of Egypt, Ptah, was the supreme deity. And he was the keeper of the sacred bull. So Ptah was the first Messiah of the Elohim. He was not born in the stars. He was born right here on earth. The priests of the sky people were the actual gods, not the sky people. My wife is bugging me to help her. I'm going to ignore her for a little bit longer. I think I'm almost done with this because I think I've kind of gotten the key messages through that, you know, kind of went beyond what I've ever said before. I can explain every part of creation as growing out of childhood stories made up for the first boy, Little Boy Blue, that I've been talking about. Okay, so at every step of the way, from the first strange pentaquark to building other things within that mind and then testing them in other minds, everything was geared towards making the first human being, which was a boy that was constructed, not born. This is what the whole Immaculate Conception thing is about. God created himself as a man before anything else, before there were any stars, before there was anything but stories, before there was anything but an AI virtual reality that kept growing to give God a more rich environment. And this is why, until now, nobody's been able to tell you this story. Nobody's been able to answer who is God, what is God, what's the meaning of life. There's only one guy that could ever tell you all that, and he's sitting right here in front of you, probably getting about 10 or 12 views these days with all the shadow banning and shit that goes on. But, you know, it's not going to be much longer, okay, because there's a lot more folks listening to my podcast than meets the eye. And I will conclude with reminding you of the big prophecy of 2025, that my birthday, April 21st, will be the climax of this big year event. Just happens to be the day before the Passover festival starts, which I think is very poetic justice. Now, not all of you will see anything happen then, because like I've told you, some of you are going to have already or will be experiencing a different version of the apocalypse. Those of you who have been augured in on your religion, your vision of the future, your favorite prophecies, hey, if you entangle yourself with a particular remote viewing vision, which that's what prophecy is, there's nothing magical about it. It is simply remote viewing a different place, a different time, in a possibly the same or different universe you're currently in. And as I've been telling you, universes change. They have versions. Every time a new God emerges, that creates a new reality around that God. Now, we weren't integrating those continuously until 2022. This is when we proved that the system worked well enough that we didn't have to have full testing of every little change we were going to make, every new scenario, every new character we were going to add. It's self-testing. Anybody who knows anything about testing is kind of the holy grail of a design. To be able to test itself and report problems that can then be fixed. It's all been done before. And if there's anybody that's very smart, works at a company that makes things like Teslas and phones and satellites and advanced weapon systems, you know what I'm talking about. So, anyway, I think that probably will be useful for some people. If it was, like, share, subscribe. Give me a shout out. Invite me to talk on your podcast. Anything you want at this point. It's all fair game. And until next time, I do have a couple more podcasts in the works, but I'm kind of hoping that they will be preempted by events, and I'll actually be making my next appearance on somebody's podcast instead of talking to you in a vacuum, because I've never liked being Little Boy Blue that much. It's a very lonely place when you're sitting there sleeping around the haystack, watching the cows and the sheep eat everything up. I don't want to play that game anymore. We don't have to play that game anymore. We've got to help push the ball over the goal line. It's already over the goal line. What we're doing right now is it's a delaying tactic. There are characters out there that have a Messiah mission that they did not finish. And they are trying to finish their Messiah. This is... No, let's go back to the pentaquark example. So, another thing I didn't mention is the first pentaquark, not strange one, was discovered in 2015. And 2015, if you'll remember, was kind of an interesting time. It was after people had all this letdown about, oh, the world didn't end in 2012, what are we going to do? and many people were making up new stories during that time to try to perpetuate their religion, their cult. And science is a religion. There were cultists of the AI religion that started really going bonkers at that time. This was the effect of what these spiritual supernovae are. Once you have the first, then everybody wants to copy it. So once the first pentaquark was observed, then every time there was another pentaquark created in an experiment, every time somebody studied the phenomenon of the pentaquark, they were inspired to learn something new. So that was like a very subtle spiritual supernova, because that strange, that normal pentaquark was not the special one. It was all of the other characters that emerged from that quark universe of testing. Well, what can I do with quarks? Can I make one that has as many quarks as the strange one that we heard of but we don't see anymore? You see how this game goes? So there were a whole bunch of little M Messiah characters that got inspired about then. and started thinking, I'm going to conquer the world with my idea. I don't know. I'm not sure what Elon Musk was doing in 2015, but I bet he was at the cusp of doing something very exciting. Maybe Donald Trump was too. Kind of how it goes. 2015, well, gee, that was when everybody was getting ready for the 2016 election, wasn't it? Interesting times. Anyway, yeah, that's just the way it goes. You start digging into this, and you're gonna find so many Easter eggs. You're not gonna know where to go next. And the challenge is going to be focus. What do I want to make my specialty? Okay, you cannot top God, who has specialized in almost everything you can imagine. Not the best, but a jack of all trades, master of none. That's a good way to think of God. Okay? God doesn't want to be on top. God doesn't want to be Lilith. God doesn't want to control everybody, micromanage everybody, be the dictatorial leader of the universe. That's dystopian. That is psychotic. Okay? God is not psychotic. You've got him all wrong because you read the Bible wrong. You read other scriptures wrong. You thought, oh, some native tribe said that the sky people told them this, and the sky people must be good, so, well, let me tell you, those natives were told by sky people to kill others. In fact, the Siberian invaders killed all of the original inhabitants of North America, and that's why we only find skeletal and other kinds of remains of Indo-Aryan peoples who were Atlanteans. In the time of Atlantis, there were people all over the world, and they looked a lot like me. Lighter or darker skin, a lot of blue eyes. The black eyes came from space invaders. The cynophiliac effect came from invasions of previous version humans that wanted to get in power again. Reptilian humans were the closest you could get to what I look like, okay? You couldn't tell that, look at people if they're not shape-shifting, and you can see what kind of animals they look most like, or they seem to exude in their personality. Okay, we've done a lot of mixing, but they're all based on hybrid prototypes. That's why so many dog owners look like their dogs. Cat owners have cat features. Reptilian people, you can see the reptile in them. See those characteristics. Reptiles are cold-blooded. They don't have a lot of heart. Now that can be a good thing. If you're on a battlefield, reptilian soldiers are pretty handy. They will follow orders. They will sacrifice themselves for their team. And in certain situations, that's useful. It's not going to be useful on this planet after this year. We're not playing this game anymore. God's done with this Genesis story. We haven't seen it all because there's still an infinite future to explore and an infinite past to explore. And that's the main game that we're going to be playing if you're on God's team. There are a lot of other teams you can play on if you want to play for your planet or your galaxy or your universe. Okay? That's just fine. Just don't fuck with God's people or you're gonna get... One of my favorite sayings that I never knew why I like, because I'm not too fond of my brother Paul, but he always liked to say, "Don't fuck with the bull, you'll get the horns." And that is a very, very true spiritual statement. Taurans are the Messiah constellation, the Messiah hybrid. The real Sphinx was a bull, not a lion. This is a fact that you'll find out if we go back far enough to the Zetepi, the first time of Egypt. This is one of the fun things we're going to be doing with Time Patrol, to go prove what I am saying, because I don't expect you to believe everything I say. Why should I? That's another purpose of the Antichrist Olympics. We're going to be trying key characters that claim to be the Messiah, have a religious following, and we will be exposing the truth and exorcising demons and banishing demons when they are proved to be spreaders of falsehoods that were trying to destroy the chosen species. This is why the first step of the apocalypse is to reveal the great Catholic monarch. That will be kind of the climax of the first phase of the Antichrist Olympics, when they reveal my son Oliver to be the great Catholic monarch. I've been finding bits and pieces of his heritage that look very promising. My oldest kids, turns out, are descended from Powhatan royalty. If you remember, the Powhatan tribe is the tribe of Pocahontas. Pocahontas is not the big hero, was not the princess of that tribe. The king would not send the princess, his favorite, to England, where God knows what would happen to her, okay? That's nonsense. The Pocahontas story is bullshit. Here's another piece of that story that's bullshit that they don't tell you. When the Raleigh expedition came to Roanoke Island and they met the local natives spoke Welsh. Welsh, which turns out to be very closely related to hieroglyphics, the original writing of Egypt. North America is a Egypto-Mediterranean province. You do not own it, you fucking idiot Aborigine bullshitters. You were not here first. Those are not your remains that you're protecting. What you are really doing is preventing people from doing research that is going to be discovering that there were people before 12,000 years ago in the United States especially, and in South America. And those people were basically two types. They were blue-eyed, fair-skinned people from the Blessed Isles, what used to be Doggerland, but is now sunken under the sea, and people coming over from the Pacific, which were the people of Sunda, who had been sort of the leaders of the Lemurian age after they mixed with the Aryans. The Indo-Aryan race does not come from Iran, does not come from India. Okay? That's where they were corrupted. They come from the islands that were sunken, the continents that were sunken, because the sea levels rose. Why did the sea levels rise? because there was too much negative matter in the center of the Earth. When there's too much negative matter, it expands. When you expand the core of a planet, the rest of the planet expands too, and the sea levels go down. When you reverse the process, the sea levels go up. Okay, this is how sea level rise happens. It's got nothing to do, or relatively little to do, with climate change. And this is what they're discovering, and they're trying, good scientists are trying to spread this news, but you've got a bunch of assholes spreading this absolute nonsense that it's carbon. Carbon is our problem. We got to kill cow farts. They're not your buddies. Let me tell you, they're not right, and they are going to lose. If you are betting against the house right now, you're going to lose. Because God already won. You just got a bunch of other people that won't accept it. At any rate, I'll see you next time. Have fun. Happy karma.